Movies show cowboys sitting around a fire with big steaks and fresh beans, but the reality of the 1870s was much darker. On a 3-month cattle drive, the chuck wagon was often empty long before the journey ended, leaving men to face a choice: starve in the desert or eat things that would make a modern stomach turn. I'm revealing the 9 forgotten meals that kept the American cowboy alive when the rations ran out. Dishes that were born of absolute necessity and extreme grit. These aren't just recipes, they are the dirty secrets of the frontier that the history books usually gloss over. You need to stay until the very end, because after we cover the survival meals, I'm revealing the 3 things a cowboy would never eat, even if he was on the brink of death. You'll be shocked to learn that one of these forbidden items is something you probably have in your kitchen right now. Number 9, son of a bitch, stew. When a calf was lost or slaughtered on the trail, nothing, and I mean nothing, was wasted. To make this rugged stew, the cook would throw the heart, liver, brains, and even the marrow-filled marrow gut into a single pot with a handful of flour and black pepper. The crazy thing is that this visceral mix was considered a delicacy because it provided the massive dose of fat and minerals needed for 18 hours in the saddle. It's a meal that reminds us that, in the wild, waste was a luxury no one could afford. Number 8. Skunk chicken. When the salted pork was gone, cowboys turned to the small game that lived in the brush, including the dreaded skunk. You had to be incredibly precise to remove the scent glands before roasting the meat over a low smoke fire to hide from raiding parties. The interesting thing is that once the smell was gone, the meat was surprisingly tender and white, similar to chicken. It was a silent meal that saved thousands of men from starving in the middle of hostile territory. Number 7. The hardtack mush. If the flour was damp and the biscuits were as hard as bricks, the cook would crush them into a powder and boil them with a little water and a spoonful of axle grease for fat. This created a thick gray porridge that was virtually tasteless, but kept the stomach from cramping during a midnight storm. The shocking reality is that this axle grease was often the only source of lubrication for their joints and their wagons alike. It was the ultimate industrial survival food of the 1800s. Number 6. Prickly pear steaks. In the high deserts of Texas and Arizona, when the water barrels were dry, cowboys would burn the needles off a cactus pad and fry it in a skillet. To make it a meal, they would layer it with a bit of salt and eat it like a steak. The fascinating thing is that the cactus provided the hydration and the vitamin C needed to prevent scurvy on the trail. It's a prickly, sour miracle that proves the desert provides a feast if you know how to handle the fire. Number 5. Marrow toast. When there was no meat left on the bone, the cowboy would crack the femur of a steer open with a hatchet to get to the inside butter. You'd spread the warm, fatty marrow over a piece of dry bread, or even a flat stone to eat it plain. The shocking truth is that marrow is almost 90% pure fat and protein, giving a cowboy the energy of 5 modern meals in a single bite. It was the jet fuel of the Old West that kept the cattle drives moving through the mud. Number 4. The vinegar pie. If the men were craving a sweet treat but there was no fruit for 1,000 miles, the cook would mix apple cider, vinegar, sugar, and flour into a pie crust. The shocking thing is that the chemical reaction made the vinegar taste exactly like tart lemons once it was baked. It provided the acid needed to balance out a diet of heavy meat and beans. It was a trick of the trail that proved a good cook could conjure a miracle out of thin air. Number 3. Rattlesnake. Ribs. This was the most common emergency meat on the trail because snakes were everywhere and easy to kill with a whip. You'd skin the snake, wrap the long ribbon of meat around a stick, and roast it until the skin was crispy. The interesting part is that it tastes remarkably like a mix of frog legs and quail, providing a lean, high-protein snack that costs 0 bullets to catch. It's a meal that turned a desert nightmare into a survival dream. Number 2. The dusty coffee, chicory, and acorns. When the coffee beans ran out, the drive didn't stop. The cook just got creative by roasting dandelion roots and acorns until they were charred. You'd grind them into a powder and boil them with a pinch of salt to cut the bitterness. The shocking reality is that this fake coffee actually provided a natural stimulant that kept the night guards awake during cattle stampedes. It was the dark, bitter lifeblood of the American frontier. Number 1, pemmican, cakes. Borrowed from the indigenous tribes, cowboys would carry small, leather-wrapped cakes of dried meat, rendered fat, and crushed berries. To make it a meal, you'd drop a cake into a cup of boiling water to create a rich, oily soup in seconds. The amazing thing is that these cakes would never spoil, even in the blistering Texas heat. It was the world's first instant meal, and it was the only reason many cowboys survived the dead zones of the trail. Now, you might think a starving cowboy would eat anything, but that's not true. There were 3 things they avoided even on the brink of death. Number 1, sheep meat. Cowboys and shepherds were in a literal war over grazing land. A cowboy would rather eat his own boots than dishonor himself by eating mutton. It was a matter of pride that often led to gunfights. Number 2, wild death commas. As we discussed in our Native American video, the death commas looks just like an onion, but is lethal. Many greenhorn cowboys died trying to forage, so experienced trail bosses banned all wild onions entirely to keep the men safe. Number 3, modern store-bought bread. By the late 1800s, some towns sold bread made with plaster of Paris to make it look white and heavy. Cowboys called it dead man's loaf because it caused intestinal blockages. They preferred their own sourdough, which they carried in a starter jar tucked against their warm skin, to anything sold in a shop. The American cowboy wasn't a hero because he was fast with a gun. He was a hero because he was fast with his mind. He knew that survival meant being humble enough to eat a skunk and smart enough to avoid a clean loaf of bread. These 9 meals are the proof that the West wasn't won with gold. It was won with grit and a heavy cast iron skillet. If you have a story about a rugged meal your family used to make, maybe something your grandfather cooked over a campfire, please share it in the comments. Let's keep the spirit of the trail alive together. Thank you for watching Lost American History. Hit that subscribe button to join our posse, and until next time, keep your head up, your fire hot, and your haversack full.